Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Gemma, and this is episode 290 of the new series of the Cognitive podcast. And another wonderful Father's Day is behind us, and that's really what a lot of this is about. I hope everybody enjoyed their Father's Day, and I hope we all had wonderful memories of our fathers, past and present, and all the father figures and all that. If you go to the show notes, you can see that, yes, I ran my first race of the season, and there I am. My finish line photo is just barely tolerable. My other photos are terrible. Let me think. Well, I look, a bit ponderous, shall we say. But, the important thing, 3 miles, 65 years old, I'll take it. And I'll talk about it, too, when we get down to shoot. And then there was a Moomin meme that I could not resist, of Moomin Troll looking out a window on a dark night. And it says, I hope you find the courage to become the version of yourself you'd be if you weren't afraid. And that one is special to me because that would be my father's theme song to me. And I am proud many years later to say, yes, I am indeed still Vincent's daughter. I am still proud of that. He taught me to live with courage. And I'm deeply grateful, and I hope you get the same. And I hope you're imparting it to your children. I am recording this on Thursday, June 25th at 11:24 a.m. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to leave them at the blog at, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my brain back together here, at, oh my goodness, Cognitive Podcast at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. I just came back from the dentist. You have to give me a few minutes to get my head together here, but I'm working on it. In the warm thanks department, I want to thank our own Marianne for sending me a delicious cup of coffee. I appreciate that. It goes towards the Libsyn bill, and it's really more than generous. I am very, very grateful when people think to do this. Okay, I also want to thank my communities on Finch, where we celebrated 450 adventures completed. Can you believe it? Over a year. On Reddit, on the ground in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valleys, and of course in the group who are listening to me every week. Thank you. I'm deeply grateful to all of you. It's a wonderful thing to think that people are still listening after all this time. And after the fact that I don't do how-to videos, I don't do an audio-visual blog, I do just an audio blog. Really, you guys are the best. I'd like to remind you that the Cognitive Fiber Retreat number 12 is coming up, and there's a link in the show notes. I'm also getting close to my July vacation, so hopefully I will sit down one afternoon and really work through the retreat and come up with more details. I think we're going to be pretty laid back. I am hoping we get the Burbank crowd to come up as well because they tend to bring some really good classes with them, but we have a lot of people who can do good classes. She hinted loudly at certain people coming from further to the north. Okay. Meanwhile, all the registration information is right there, and hopefully the week after July 4th, that's going to get a nice cleanup and upgrade. In the meantime, oh yes, and by the way, I think, what did I say? Sign-ups begin September 1st. Not really. If you want to sign up for CFR 2026, please just do it. All right. In the meantime, you are saying, but Gemma, what is on your hooks and needles? How nice you should ask. It is fully summer, and so I am into my summer habits, which I'm kind of loving. And right now it is a sort of finish it up summer. And I have a lot of old stuff lying around, and I'm also decluttering my work area. First thing, I finally finished my second Melt the Ice hat. It's amazing how long this one took me because this is an easy hat. Now, part of the reason I was hemming and hawing was I did the original Melt the Ice hat and it just doesn't give me a good fit. And I thought, well, that's okay. You know, it's such a good cause and all that. And I'm glad I bought the pattern, and there are other means of contributing, and that's further down in the show notes. And I've been taking advantage of that. But I just thought, this is the colorway Sagittarius in Malabrigo Rios, and I just love it. And I thought, I'm just going to go for a more regular hat. So I made the My Baker's hat, which so far is my favorite iteration of the basic watch cap. A lot of people have tried the basic watch cap. It's taken me years to find one that I'm this comfortable with. And so I just said, okay, let's get on with that. So there you can see the finished watch cap. It's red enough. I can wear it in protest marches. And then I had leftovers. And so I went to the Simple Speedy Cowl, which is a great standby if you have a partial chunk of a worsted weight yarn. Actually, you could do this in any weight you want, but it works especially well for the leftovers from a skein I'm using for a hat, as you can see. The Simple Speedy Cowl is free. It's a free download on Ravelry. Links are all in my show notes, of course, at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. You know, that same URL I couldn't say 5 minutes ago. Okay. But the basic pattern here is chain some number that I don't remember. I want to say like 155 or something. But anyway, then you do a row of single crochet and above it a row of double crochet. And that's it. You just keep alternating single crochet with double crochet. You crochet right into the stitch below it. It's a great use up of yarn. Now, I'm looking at this and thinking this also would be great if you did the pattern as single crochet chain one and in every row. And of course, once you get above the first row, you're going to do your single crochet into the space made by the chain ones in the previous row. All of these would work, but there I am wearing my Sagittarius Simple Speedy Cowl, and I quite like it. And then the other happy thing in my world of finish things up, I was trying to get rid of all the yarn I have from the Woobles kits and the Mini Crafts kits. It's the same size, same type of yarn, a beginner tubular yarn. And the Woobles call it Easy Peasy yarn. Mini Crafts calls it their own yarn, I guess. But anyway, I used up all the scraps, and the last thing I did, you can see a picture, first of all of my scrap yarn projects from all my leftovers. And I had a lot. So you can see there's, I think, 6 Woobles there. And the one on the far left, the Purple Cat, no, that's from regular acrylic yarn that I had in the stash. That's my Minerva. She's my desk mascot. But the very last one is their snake, Millie the Snake. That is one weird looking snake. I'm just going to say it. Now they do her head all in white with a white muzzle. I couldn't do that. I didn't have enough yarn. So you can see I went for a red and green head and a black muzzle, and it comes out looking mighty weird. That gold thing sticking out the front is her tongue. But anyway, Millie the Snake's actually a really great pattern to know. If you ever want to use up bits and bobs of crochet yarn, that's the way to do it. I mean, I did that. I whipped that one together basically in a morning because you're only doing rows of 10 stitches around. And I did a lot of variations on the pattern, which is just 3 rows, change color. But this got all of the leftover easy peasy type tubular yarn out of my stash and off my desk. And so all those guys, except for the Purple Cat, will be coming to CFR 12 because I love to give away the little amigurumi toys to the kitties that we meet. And it's a nice way to use up your scraps. It's a nice way to use the contribute skill from distress tolerance skills that I am getting a dopamine high just thinking about all the little kitties are going to want these, except maybe that snake. I think most of them are going to scream and freak out, but hey, you know, life is like that. And let's see what else. In progress. Well, the stash toss, because of all this, I am saying now 25 skeins in this year, but 51 skeins out, which is very nice. It's a nice place to be. No progress on anything except I am working on the Bloodroot tea, which is nice. And I also went back into my Ravelry projects, and there's an embroidery project, and I decided that's probably my next thing to get out of my life. But I am also still doing abascals, and they'll pop up in the finished section from time to time from here on, I think. Because I'm doing all these abascals because I am clearing all the scrap sock yarn off my desk. And will I want to wear all these cows? What surprises me? I believe it was 2023 or 2024 when we did the abascal. And it was a lot of fun. And it uses up mini skeins, scraps, all that sort of thing. And I made something like 7 of them. What surprises me is they're gone now, with one exception, from all my collected finished objects, that people take them all the time from me, or people are cold. We'll be on the bus and someone's shivering and I'll go, here, do you want this? And I'll hand them the cowl and show them how to put it on. And they go away. And I'm reminded of one of the group whose name, I can see her face and I can't think of her name, which is my lifelong quandary, from our Orange County gang, who used to come up all the time. And she was making these little mini purses and just giving them out. And they were a great scrap yarn project in crochet for a size 4 or above yarn. And you may remember I was making them a few years ago as well, because I thought it was such a neat project. And I still have 2 of them that I'm using for minor trips when I don't want to take along my big bag of tote and projects and stuff. Anyway, the abascals are in that category. They're one of these things you can make easily. Once you get the hang of it, it's really mindlessly simple. And you can just give them to a shelter or give them to strangers, give them to Goodwill. They're always going to go to use. And it's better than having a pile of little sock yarn balls floating around on my desk. So I'm working on that. And meanwhile, I'm trying to catch everything else up. So let's get on to a strategy. Well, the strategy this week is something one of my patients did. And I am really asking that you sort of pause and reflect on this. So I have a lovely patient, and she went on a long vacation with her family. And in the middle of the vacation, while on an outing, she lost her cell phone in a way that is simply never going to be recoverable. And then she wasn't going to see me for another full week. So when she told me about it, she was really peaceful about it. And that surprised me. And I said, why? And she said, I don't feel like I'm being tracked all the time. And I was really surprised by that. Now, what was interesting is this is a patient of an age that she really doesn't remember a time without cell phones. And so part of that experience is growing up wanting your own cell phone because it's this really special toy and you can do all these things with it and stay in touch with your friends and all that. But we ended up having this really great discussion about cell phone dieting. And it was just a really interesting thing to hear a person so much younger than me talking about it. And she said, among other things, she said, first, I really felt like I was under inappropriate surveillance. That I'm an adult, but my parents on our family plan, they could always track me. And I said, well, I'm from a generation where we always kind of want to know where each other are just for safety. And she said, yes, but there's a big difference between that and your parents being able to ask you, why were you in this place? Why were you in that place? We don't have that concept of privacy because we have this cell phone with a family plan and tracking and all this. And I looked at her and she said, well, what are you thinking? You think that's weird? I said, no, I think that's called my 20s. And we both started laughing. Cell phones, let me think, really became common when I was in my mid-40s. So can you imagine, over half my life, we didn't do this stuff to each other. The other interesting thing she noted was social media. She said, it's phony. I didn't realize how phony it is. These people are talking about how they are your friends, but they've never met you, and they actually know nothing about you. And you post a version of yourself, but she said, this isn't real, is it? And I said, well, imagine a world where when you meet somebody, you're meeting them always face to face. Or maybe they're on the phone with your friend from your friend's home and you all go out to coffee together or something. But I said, yeah, imagine a world where your first point of contact is not this anonymous thing or quasi-anonymous called Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or name any of them, TikTok, I don't care, name them. And imagine a world where you're not following accounts of total strangers who are making claims to authority they may or may not have and are trying to get you to do what they do. And I said, think about how hard it is that, my example was men, that men are presented on social media as dangerous. They're all seeking a perfect woman. They have all these ways to criticize women. They talk about harming women with a great amount of freedom. So imagine a world where you don't see men that way. And then my patient talked about the thing I hadn't thought about. She said, I now have long periods of time where I'm just alone in silence. And I was sort of surprised. And she said, what? And I said, are you talking about boredom? And she said, I've never been bored for an hour at a time. At which point, I had to pick myself up off the mental floor because there was so much boredom in my childhood. And there's now research on this because in the world of psychology, we're beginning to realize you may actually need boredom. And where that is going is this. When you are bored, you have to practice controlling your thinking. And when you control your thinking, when you use thought substitution to stop thinking painful thoughts, when you use thought stopping to simply cut off anxious or depressed thoughts, you learn to manage your head. You use boredom to learn to control your thinking and not to pollute your own head with unhelpful, frightening, or painful thoughts. And it never occurred to me that, yes, if we don't let people get bored, they don't have to practice this. They can always look at the next little solitaire game or video game on their phone, or, even they can read on their Kindle or they can skim social media. And I said, so how's that going? And she said, I really like it. But she said, when I do it, I hear myself doing the things you warn me against. I hear myself in silence thinking about all this negative stuff. And she said, I find myself saying, why do I do this? The answer is because you didn't have a childhood of boredom in which you had to learn to manage what's going on inside your head. And it occurred to me for the first time, I'm teaching people to meditate so they get that skill. But in my generation, we were getting that skill as long as things went well when we were bored. And here's another skill you get out of boredom, time management. When you're bored, you begin to think about, I am bored, I want something to do. You begin to realize that you can achieve and do much more than you thought when you have free time, and you can begin to organize your free time productively. So I guess the strategy this week is try to think about boredom in a positive way. Try not to keep picking up your cell phone or your tablet. Try to allow for boredom and allow for it as a time to practice calm thought management and time management. It's really nice when I tell you how to do things like meditation, and I'm very happy to do it, and I've been meditating for many years, since the mid-90s, early 90s in fact. But I would also tell you it might come easier for me as someone in the late boomer generation than it comes to your kids, because I had to tolerate boredom at different ages, and younger people don't. And that's a pretty significant loss. Oh, shoot. Well, I ran the Sugar Daddy 5K. And I had all the usual negative headset. I'm getting up at 5. Why am I doing this? My son didn't make it because he wasn't really trained up to it, and he slept through it, frankly. So it was a little sad. I went by myself, but it wasn't really sad. I had a good time. I picked up my registration stuff there. And if you look at the pictures, you can see me in front of the starting line. Then you can see me with my finisher's medal, which has to be the single most unfortunate and ugly finisher's medal I've ever seen. It was unfortunate because the run came right after the debacle of the gladiatorial garbage on the White House lawn. And so Sugar Daddy, with our current administration, has a whole different meaning, I'm afraid. But they always run this race on Father's Day weekend. I think it's just a joke. I don't think it's at all connected with current politics. But unfortunately, and this is a coincidence, believe me, because they did this a year ago, for some reason, some rocket scientist on the planning committee said, hey, let's give them rings like Worldwide Wrestling Federation or something. The thing weighs 10 pounds, that white thing hanging off the end of my ribbon in the second picture there of me where I'm standing next to the trailhead sign. And it was ugly. And frankly, they gave me an extra one because I'm a legacy runner. They gave me a black one. Went right into the trash can. I can't even figure out a way to recycle it. It's just a big, ugly hunk of plastic. And I'm afraid the white one went the way of all flesh, but I did save the ribbon. It's just too painful to look at that thing in light of recent events. And I know it's just an unfortunate coincidence. And the good news, I did 16-minute miles. Now, that's really slow. Okay, yes, it's true. I'm 65. I'm thrilled when I do 13-minute miles, and that's more typical of what I do in a 3-mile race. But I'm not up to that yet. In my running program, I've been running about 3 weeks now, and I'm running at somewhere between 51 and 62 minutes per training session. Now, this time of year, usually I'm doing 30 minutes, but this year I just felt like going long, so I'm going long. This one really tired me out. I upped my speed on this one, and you can see the difference because when I run at home, I'm running like 19, 20-minute miles. Of course, I am running uphill on trails. And when I'm on the flat here or a very, very gradual incline on the first half, I can go faster. So I used a different running schedule. I used the Run 5K schedule, and I think I warmed up before the finish line, and then I think I ran 3, walked 3, ran 6, walked 3, ran 4, walked 3, and I did that twice, and that took me nicely to the end. So it went really pretty well considering where I am in my training schedule. I believe my next one is going to be the Tehachapi Mountain Gallop 5K, because I could do the 5K up in Tehachapi for July 4th, and I think it's going to be A, kind of a political nightmare, and B, hot. Even in Tehachapi, July is hot. So I'm hanging in, like August in Tehachapi isn't hot, right? Just live with my fantasy. So I probably am not going to go up there until the August Mountain Gallop, and hopefully I will be faster on that one. Here in the Fluffy Books, I finished The Fatal Unpleasantness at Netherfield Park. This one I couldn't put down. This is the Miss Tilney and Mr. Darcy series. And yeah, she has mistakes in Regency logic that you could, holes so big you could fly the Starship Enterprise through them. But I have to hand it to her. I was fascinated to see how she would handle this one. And I read and listened to it really quickly and enjoyed it enormously. I am reading A Bitter Cut by Anna Lee Huber. This is the latest in the Lady Darby series. These are getting a little blah, that there's not any big developments in the characterization, which is why I like to read series. But nonetheless, Anna Lee Huber is an intelligent writer, and her characters are also very well thought out and very likable. And they're interesting because Lady Darby is actually knowledgeable in both art and physiology and anatomy. And that leads to a lot of complications in her life, and I genuinely enjoy these. But again, they're falling into a bit of a rut, I have to admit. Finally, I'm listening to the 4th book in the Enchanted Forest series by Patricia C. Reedy, and this is Calling on Dragons. And these are just fun. They're a little bit empty in the way I want them to be to fall asleep at night. I've read them before. They are a rollicking fun read, both the first and the second time around. Something I really like, it would have to be that I'm racing again. Last year when I started running, I just wasn't into it. And I kind of pushed myself through the season and had a pretty good running season. And this year I couldn't wait to do it when finally all the winds stopped. I wanted to start in early May. And we just had yucky Santa Ana winds and cold weather and everything else. So I was pushed off, and now I'm really, really enjoying it. And I am shocked at the difference because now I'm getting up at 4 to 5:30 in the morning, and I get out there before the sun's very intense, sometimes even before it's fully over the tops of the mountains. And the breezy coolness reminds me that I can stay indoors during the oppressively hot part of the day and still have a very fulfilling morning before I even get to work with my patients. So I have to admit, something I really like is running again and racing again. It does make an enormous difference in my mood and in my feelings of confidence to be doing it. No action in Green Fingers or put a lid on it. I guess this year I've lost a lot of my oomph for planting. Part of that is because my husband is moving great sheets of plywood around the house and in front of the windows as he's working on industrial strength weeding for our 5-acre plot here. And I'm really grateful for it. But the other odd thing is, while it blocks some of my planting beds, it also keeps the heat out of the house because it's blocking the heat from our south-facing windows. Doesn't make the house look good, but it sure makes life easier here in the hot days of summer. So hopefully I'll get my legs back under me next spring for Green Fingers. But right now we're just maintaining, and what we're finding is, yes, the autumn sage is a good success. That seems likely to carry on, so next year I'll be doing more of that. The creeping thyme, Metz, the mint is coming back pretty well. Not as fully as it has in previous years, so I may next year invest in some plants and thicken that bed out again. Put a lid on it pretty basically. I would say the food of the summer is the quick, basic keto bread and the salmon soup. A helping of both that fills me up. It's basically 2 grams of carb or something. So that's been very, very pleasant. And so we're on to the blather. Well, last Saturday was a bit unexpected. I knew I had a race. So I went off to that, as I said, and this was really good. The Sugar Daddy, as strange as all the name and the medal and all that were. So I came home, and to my surprise, my husband just said, "Hey, I want to go on the train and I want to go get sushi on a conveyor belt and all that." So we just did. We just took the train quietly to Glendale and we went up to Kura Sushi and we got our conveyor belt sushi. And it was just fun. And then we all cut loose in the mall, which was good because I needed to work on slightly better looking warm weather gear. Namely, I wanted to see if I could find some bicycle shorts for running. I used to have them. I don't know what became of them because I'm really kind of horrifyingly mindful of keeping all my running gear, but I could not find my biking shorts. So I went off to Dick's Sporting Goods and got some biking shorts, and I'm now a happy person. And there I am in the show notes in a picture at the Glendale Galleria because they put in this pretty little art installation and said, "Hey, take your picture at this." So I did. You can't deny that I'm suggestible. So we went home to a quiet evening. Did we eat? No, we actually ate there. I'm sorry, I actually had a bento box at a place in their food court called Bento Box, and they shaved the sushi. It was very funny. The sashimi was shaved in these little tiny thin slices. It was just hilarious. I mean, from one normal piece of sushi, I think they're shaving off like 6 layers. But it was a delicious salad. What can I say? So we went home and then woke up the next day, and it was Father's Day. Well, back onto the train we went because my beloved for Father's Day wanted a membership to LACMA, and I gave him that. I thought it was a really good thing. It'll save us all a lot of money over the year if he has the membership. I am so getting my money's worth out of mine. And then they sold us one for my son, and they had a special bonus, if you can believe this, $25 for a year membership because he is a student. This compares to the one-day entry fee for students, which is $26. So yeah, we had a really happy Father's Day. What can I tell you? The Geffen was amazing. Now, we wandered through that gallery, the Geffen itself, in the morning. And then we found out, I can't believe I'm saying this, that there's another Kura revolving sushi bar right near the stop at, let me think, Wilshire. I can't remember if it's Wilshire and La Brea. At any rate, it's like 2 stops down from Wilshire and Fairfax where you stop for the Geffen. So we ended up having sushi again in this teeny tiny version of the Galleria's version of Kura. It had the rotating sushi belt. It had the little robots that deliver your drinks. It was just a lot more compact, but it also wasn't crowded and was very friendly and funny. And we went back to the Geffen. And this time, we didn't actually go into the Geffen. We went across the campus of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art to their modern art. There's 2 buildings facing each other. One is the Resnick, the other is BCAM or something. The Broad, I'm not sure I'm getting the name right. I'll have to go back and check it probably this week. But anyway, they were opening a new exhibit called Fashioning Chinese Women. And I really recommend, if you're a seamstress and a hand embroidery junkie as I am, as well as in love with history, you need to see this. It was women's clothing in China from about 1870, heavy focus on 1890, through I believe about 1980. It's spectacular, and it's so rich and so loaded with detail and things to see. I'll be honest, I got through the first room at a crawl. You can see parts of that in the show notes. And it took so much out of me. There was just so much to observe, to read, to study, to look at. I gave you a few of the photos. It's just so hard to get it all. It's so overwhelmingly gorgeous. So in the photos, you can see the very first displays. They also, by the way, had an artist do the mannequins. In the first series, you don't see very much. It's as you go further down and they have heads and faces. You just have to see them. They're beautiful. I can't believe I've lived to say that about a mannequin. But anyway, they had a lot of information. They had films. They had probably 4 or 5 large display rooms. I walked through all of them, but the one I really stopped for was the oldest one because I wanted to observe the embroidery details and the manufacturing processes on the older jackets and vests and skirts. And I couldn't help it. They did bother to show you that in the late 19th century, women of the upper class still have bound feet. And so in that first series of pictures there, you will see under the gown, I don't think you can really see it well in that picture, there's a gown that has the bottom of the skirt. They wear a skirt over pants if they're married, the women that is, and there is a picture of bound feet in the shoes that would go with them. And it's hard to explain it. The mannequin was my own height, and the feet were probably about, I'd say 2/3, if that much, the length of my feet. It's very disturbing when you see it up close. You can't imagine the difficulty and the pain that must have caused young Chinese girls to have this done. I can't even explain why a culture would think that's a great idea. And my heart goes out to those poor women. In the meantime, you can see I focused on this beautiful yellow jacket with a cloud collar built into it. Apparently most of the cloud collars rode on the top of the jacket, but this one seems to have been sewn into it. So you can see the collar at the very top, just below where the mannequin shows. And I also couldn't get over the embroidery on the sleeves, so I tried to show you that. In the meantime, we left, and we went over to Union Station, and we had about an hour to kill, and that's when I realized in Union Station, which I think is built about 1918 or something, I really should look that up, I apologize, but Union Station is a treasure. If you walk into the main hall of it and look up, it's just gorgeous in every direction. And Union Station, I believe, was U-shaped. And we use one whole side and the connecting part of the U. And the other side was kind of closed down and allowed to go to rot. And part of it was a restaurant owned by the Fred Harvey organization, which is the concession that runs, it's the business that runs all the concessions in the national parks. Well, Fred Harvey shut this one down, but they left all the fittings in it. So it has reopened as a restaurant. I'm not sure what they're calling it. I wandered in to find a ladies' room and found myself in this art, I think it's Art Deco masterpiece. So there's a picture of it, the most representative picture I could get. This is standing at the bar looking towards the front window, which in turn looks across the U to the entryway to Union Station. And there's so much in that picture. The lamps that are hanging from the ceiling, the two flat lamps against that front wall, the giant arched window with the panes of glass. You just have to see this. If you get into Los Angeles, please go see Union Station. And please take your time to walk through it. And one of the joys of life right now in LA is that it's being rediscovered. So they're opening it up, renovating it, cleaning it, and trying to use more of it. It is a breathtakingly beautiful train station and a classic work of American architecture from the early 20th century. So we came home, and since then it's just been very quiet. Like I said, I've been finishing up projects, clearing off old yarn from my desk and my table here, and I'm finishing things, and currently I'm trying to find the missing pink floss from my embroidery project, and I'm hoping to get back to that. And I went to the dentist this morning. My teeth are great, and I love my dentist. That's all I'm going to say. You can find the links to all the community resources, including the most recent one to social services that includes link to pages to help with the crisis with ICE and also with the resources for the LGBTQIA plus community. You can see on my calendar as I record this, I am 8 days out from my vacation from July 3rd through July 12th. I can't wait. I have also made my reservations to be in Tehachapi on August 16th for the 5K, the Mountain Gallop 5K. And then you can see I move on to the Be the Light in September and so on. They've drastically cut back our racing schedule here. I'm okay with that. So finally, Minerva gets the last word. And you can see there the Father's Day card that she and I gave to my husband. I couldn't resist it. It's his kind of art. And then it has a dog and a cat, which we've had all our lives together. And of course, it's a black cat. And it says, it's a card. It says, "You are my happy place." This card, I believe, is from the Craft Contemporary Museum. So, of course, it represents my favorite sort of craft art production. But I was looking at Minerva and thinking, yeah, cats don't really know about their fathers. And I was thinking, that's a shame. But Minerva would like you to know that even though she thinks this human custom of having a father is weird, she has bonded to the closest thing she's got, which happens to be my partner, my husband. And so if you ask Minerva, what's a father? Well, he's that guy you beg chicken from at dinner. And he says every time we shouldn't be feeding the animals from the table, to which I say, who cares? We're in our 60s. And then we all start throwing tidbits of meat to the animals. Minerva got some chicken from him last night, so Minerva would answer, what's a father? He's the guy who provides you the chicken and all the good things. So happy Father's Day to all of us, one and all. And remember all our fathers, including the people who were male role models for us growing up. When we had problems in our family, they were the uncles and the cousins and the coaches and the teammates and the friends we turned to. All of that is good fathering. All of that is training for them. All of that is a blessing on us. So please remember, even if you don't have the most satisfying father in the world, please remember those other wonderful male role models who give us comfort and love, because that's also fatherhood. Having said that, this matters because we are a community, and role modeling is a huge part of the success of the community. And when we take care of each other in our communities, we are taking care of the whole community. So having said that, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.